Imagine the logistical footprint of 50,000 people on the move. Picture thousands of snorting war horses, supply wagons groaning under the Egyptian sun, and miles of infantry kicking up dust. These stone carvings show the scale of that power. By 524 BC, the Persian Empire was the undisputed superpower of the known world. King Cambyses II had just crushed the pharaoh's forces to take control of the Nile. But military victory was rarely enough for Cambyses. He expected the gods themselves to validate his reign, specifically the mystical Oracle of Amun, located deep within the Sahara. The oracle refused. Instead of blessing his new empire, the priests delivered a prophecy predicting the king's total downfall. Enraged, Cambyses decided to make an example of them. He dispatched an armada of 50,000 elite troops from the city of Thebes, with one specific objective: march across the desert, burn the oracle to the ground, and enslave the priests. Following this route, the column endured a grueling 7-day trek to the Karga oasis. From there, they stepped off the edge of the known map, marching straight into the deep dunes. Silence followed. Months passed. The oracle remained untouched, and the 50,000 men simply never emerged from the sand. No survivors straggled back. No bodies were found. Misplacing a single regiment is a tactical error. For an entire invading force of 50,000 hardened warriors to walk into the desert and evaporate without a trace defies basic logistics. This marble bust shows the Greek historian Herodotus. 75 years after the disappearance, he recorded the only surviving account of the army's fate, based on whispers from local desert nomads. According to those locals, the Persian army stopped to eat their midday meal halfway to the oasis. Suddenly, the sky turned a bruised purple, and a violent wind began howling from the south. They were hit by a Khamsin, a localized sandstorm that functioned like a tidal wave of burning red earth, blacking out the sun. Within hours, the geography of the desert was rewritten. New dunes, hundreds of feet high, were erected over the camp. The men suffocated, entombed alive beneath millions of tons of shifting earth. This terrifying act of God became the accepted historical truth. 50,000 soldiers, frozen in time in the dark, waiting beneath the dunes for 2.5 millennia. Modern archaeologists have spent lifetimes searching for them. An army of that size leaves a massive debris field. Somewhere beneath the sand, there should be a mountain of bronze weapons, silver armor, supply wagons, and skeletal remains. In 2009, 2 Italian archaeologists claimed they finally found it. They uncovered a small scattering of human bones, hundreds of arrowheads, and this Persian bronze blade near the Siwa oasis. However, the Egyptian government and the scientific community quickly dismissed the findings. They were too few and too scattered to be conclusive. The math does not support the discovery. A handful of arrowheads and a single dagger cannot account for an entire vanished legion. 50,000 men leave behind a trail of artifacts that a few random finds cannot match. Survival experts suggest a psychological collapse. Driven mad by thirst and chasing mirages, the army's discipline likely broke. They may have turned on each other, scattering into the dunes until they died of exposure. This lack of physical evidence leaves a massive hole in the traditional narrative. If the sand didn't bury them, it raises the possibility that the legend of the storm was a fabrication from the start. Professor Olaf Kapper of Leiden University suggests a different culprit, an ambush by Egyptian rebels. Look at this tactical map. Kapper argues the 50,000 men were actually sent to crush an uprising led by a rebel named Petabostes III at the Dakhla oasis. The local insurgents knew the brutal terrain. They likely waited for the massive, exhausted army to arrive thirsty and half-blinded by the sun, then launched a total bloody massacre. When King Darius I took the throne years later, he inherited a disaster. A ruler's authority relied on projected power, exactly like you see in these rock reliefs. Admitting a ragtag group of rebels wiped out the invincible Persian army was an unthinkable political risk. Darius invented a more honorable excuse. By blaming an unstoppable act of God, he protected the empire's reputation for military invincibility. When Herodotus arrived decades later, he was fed this state propaganda. He wrote it down as fact, turning a military cover-up into historical canon for thousands of years. Darius I's story of a divine sandstorm survived for 2,500 years. If the bones of the 50,000 lie beneath a rebel battlefield rather than a sand dune, this mystery is simply the result of a highly successful ancient lie.